To those who are given much, much is required. I want to thank Jeffrey because he has built an incredible business and he gives so much back to the Republican Party. Underwriting events like this, he and Barbara do a fantastic job. But I also want to say this, thank you, Jeffrey. You hear the passion in his heart. But I want to say something about everyone in this room. To those who are given much, much is required. You have been given much. You have been given much. To be here, to stand out in your community, to be a leader, to come here on your own dime, to be a part of history, to stand last night in a great moment, waving your hats and nominating our nominee, but also celebrating our great friend, as I said last night at the mic, Ted Cruz. It was a great moment for us. A great moment. To those who are given much, much is required. You are leaders. I need you. Our party needs you. Our country needs you. Donald Trump needs you. This is the convention where we leave in unity, coming together. You know, someone asked me last night, and I wish Greg Abbott would have been here. He's still our official chairman. I'm just his designee. It was his moment to do that last night, but he was not able to be here. And the update, he's doing better, but he is recovering. We communicated last night, and I talked to some members of his staff. He's doing better, but he's recovering. I remember, a reporter asked me, well, Dan, how do you feel about, first of all, you know, I've given, I don't know, 1,000 speeches. I've done thousands of radio and TV shows, literally, in interviews, but I get nervous every time. Every time. And I was really nervous last night. I didn't want to say the wrong thing. And, well, thank you. Thank you. It's easy to talk about Texas. And I remember, you know, my mom's 89 and she's not doing too well, and she was watching at home, and I remember that when I was a little kid, and those of you who are over 60 will remember this in the 60 Club, when we used to watch black and white on 3 channels and had a snowy picture. Remember that? And I can remember seeing then Mike Wallace, Chris Wallace's dad, with this big pack. He looked like he was an astronaut or something on the moon, and a big antenna hooking up, and he had these big headphones that looked like hubcaps, walking around convention floors on that black and white TV, and watching those people stand there and do that roll call vote. You know, there's 2 highlights in every convention. It's the roll call vote and when the nominee speaks. And to have that privilege, like Jeffrey was saying, look, my family was, my dad was a truck driver, my mom was a bookkeeper, neither finished high school. And in this country, for this kid from Baltimore to come to Texas almost 40 years ago, and for you to embrace me and give me this opportunity to be lieutenant governor, is just a miracle. And a miracle. I always text Jan a lot. By the way, I told you yesterday was our 41st wedding anniversary, and so I sent her a text. I said, "Did you see the roll call?" And she said, "No, I was putting on a doorknob," which she was. A doorknob fell off, but she taped it for later viewing. Last Thursday, I don't know how many of you saw the Teletown Hall or know about it, but I was on ABC with the president. How many of you, they didn't have a very big viewing audience on that, but I want to tell you a little bit behind the scenes what happened, to tell you how biased the media is. And the media in the room, I want you to write this down, Bob Garrett, because someone needs to tell ABC to release the full tape of my time with the president, because someone is holding back that tape. Hear that, Bob? They want the tape released. Release the tape. Hashtag release the tape. So I was the only elected official invited to the town hall in the country. Again, Jan, how did I get here? And I realized there was risk and reward. There's risk and reward to everything. Because and I've done lots of interviews with lots of folks, but it's the President of the United States. So regardless what you think about his politics, it's the office you respect. And if the President would have cut me off in 30 seconds on national television, I could have looked potentially weak because I would not have gotten my questions out. He could have cut me off with something that wasn't true, and I couldn't have corrected it. I might not have even been recognized to speak. There were, they had lots of people in the audience, and they didn't have a mic time for everyone. But we decided to go. And I went because, first of all, they did promise we would get some time. They didn't promise how much time. But I went because someone needed to tell the President to support law enforcement in this country and quit inviting people to the White House who want to kill cops. Someone needed to say it. No one has challenged the President of the United States on this issue. So, Luke 12:48, to those who are given much, much is expected. So we went, not knowing what to expect. Knowing I wanted to not be deferential, like, oh, gee, you're the President, or not being disrespectful. So just being firm. And so we got to the studio at about 1:15. We were supposed to tape. It was not a live show. It was what's called live to tape. So you're supposed to tape it like it's live. I mean, when you watch Bill O'Reilly, that's live to tape. That's seldom live. When you watch Jimmy Fallon or the old Johnny Carson show, it was live to tape. They tape it like it's live. And it was an hour show and uninterrupted with commercials. It was supposed to be 1 hour. We were supposed to start at 2 o'clock. So when I got there, I sat in the front row where they told me to sit with 8 other people who were going to be able to ask a question. And I had read about Cameron Sterling. Cameron Sterling is a 15-year-old African-American young man whose father was killed in a police shooting in Louisiana. Unlike the President, I'm not judging what the facts are until the full due process and the facts are allowed. But regardless of what the facts say, this 15-year-old lost his father. And he was going to talk to the President. And I ended up sitting next to him. I'd read his story. And what I read about Cameron was he says, I don't want any more good police to be killed. And I don't want any people in my community to be killed. It's just the heart of a 15-year-old. And I got a chance to sit next to him. That's where I was sitting. And sitting next to me were 2 other young African-American teenagers, Andrew and Jamar. And their story was they were in Dallas with their mom at the protest. Their mom had taken her children to the protest. And their mother was shot in the leg. It was a ricochet. And when she fell, a police officer leaped on top of her to save her and her children. And Jamar, who is, I think, in the 8th grade now, as I recall, he wants to be a police officer. So I want to give you that context. So there I'm sitting between those 3 young men. And the President was late. He's the President. He can be late. He was late by about an hour, so we got a chance to talk. And I got a chance to talk to Cameron's mom, Quinetta, who said, my heart's breaking for my husband, but I'm praying for the families of the police officers in Dallas because that was a terrible thing. And we've all lost a husband. 10 children lost a father in Dallas. And I went to those funerals, and I visited with those families. And it was heartbreaking. One of the reasons I was invited by ABC because I was pretty emotional in an interview on Fox about 6 hours after I had left the hospital. We flew up there about 3 in the morning. The governor was out of state, as you know. He was in Wyoming. And as I learned the news, I was having grandpops camp with my grandson at my house, and we were having fun, and I saw the news. Police officer dead, police officer dead, police officer dead, as that story unfolded. And so we made the decision to get a plane and get to the hospital. We got there about 3 a.m. to Parkland and Baylor, and I watched 4 deceased bodies go out on those gurneys, and the families walking behind them. It was a tough night and police officers standing in salute, frozen in a line down the hospital corridor with hospital workers. I visited with an officer who was shot twice. I was pretty emotional when I went on Fox. And I'm sick and tired of people going to the streets and chanting, "Kill the cops." I'm sick of it. So Fox saw me, and I guess they thought, and I used the wrong word at the wrong time. I said hypocrite, and I said, look, it's wrong word at the wrong time. The point I was trying to make was the irony of the protesters who were protesting when the shots fired. They wanted those people to protect them. It was the irony of that. And that's why, by the way, Jamar realized it in the 7th or 8th grader that he is, that now I want to be a cop. I get it. I mean, Rudy was right the other night. When they come, they come. And they don't care if you're black or white or brown. They come to save your life. So ABC thought they were going to get some rebel rouser, wild-eyed, Republican up there to take on the president. But I was resolute. So there's the backdrop for you. So I say to Cameron, Cameron, this is the 15-year-old boy. And we made a connection. And I had my arm around him. He was nervous. I won't say what was on his cell phone, but he said, would you look at this and tell me if you think this is what I should say to the president? And it was very heartfelt. And I said, I think it's good. And one of the things he said, he didn't want to see good policemen get killed. So I said, Cameron, at the end, and they had said, Cameron, you hand the mic to the lieutenant governor, because there was a video, and then he was second, I was the third speaker, I think. And so I said, Cameron, when I finish, would you stand with me? And together, we say to the president, stop the violence. And he said, yes, sir. So what you saw was about 40% of actually my give and take with the president. Twice I asked him to condemn the rhetoric in the street and stop the violence, and ABC cut those two questions out. The next thing was the president the day before had a conference in the White House, and he said relationships between the black community and the police are only going to get worse. It's going to be a long time. That's what he said in the White House. And so I got up and said that to the president. I said, Mr. President, yesterday you said that relationships between the president and the White House, between the police and the black community were only going to get worse, and it would be a long time to turn this around. And I said, it doesn't have to be that way, Mr. President. And they cut that out, Bob Garrett. And then I said, I'm sitting here with 3 young African-American men. And Mr. President, you may not have hope, but they have hope and I have hope. And ABC cut that out. And then I said, you cannot convict the police looking at a videotape. They left that in. I said, when you go home tonight, turn the blue lights on. He still has not. And they left that in. But then I said, because there is balance, I said, look, we understand, Mr. President. There are some officers who make mistakes, and that has to be addressed. And the police force wants to address those officers because it reflects on them. And I will go anywhere, talk to anyone you want. I'll get on a blue ribbon panel to try to bring unity to our country. But first, we must stop the violence. And they cut that out. And then I said, Mr. President, and many of you have my pins, the flag with the cross in it. I'd given it to Cameron and Jamar and Andrew, and they wore those pins. And Cameron had told me he was a Christian, the 15-year-old boy who lost his dad in Louisiana. And I said, Mr. President, I've asked Cameron if he would stand with me, and Cameron stood up. The image of, and remember, this town hall was to be about unity. And here is a 15-year-old African-American young man who has lost his dad standing to this 60-year-old plus white conservative Republican from Texas, and both of us stood there and said, Mr. President, will you stop the violence? And ABC cut that out. That's media bias. We want ABC to release that tape. We want to show we can be unified if the media will step out of dividing us. And if the Democrats will step away from dividing us. The police don't want the violence. The vast majority of the black community do not want the violence. This nation can come together. Now let's take that message and let's talk about this convention. First of all, have you all had a great time? It's only going to get better. It's fun. You're part of history. I said to someone the other day, this is my third convention, I wish I had been there when Ronald Reagan was nominated.
You're not old enough.
She said, you're not old enough, honey. Well, let's just say I've been getting my double Grand Slam breakfast at Denny's for a long time at a reduced price. But this is what this convention is going to be about. This is an historic convention. We've never seen anything like it. And we all wish Ted Cruz were on the stage. We all wish Ted was there. And it's one of the reasons, actually, Texas needs to be unified. Because if we want Texas to be there one day, in 4 or 8 years, or 12 years, he's a young guy. We want to be unified behind our candidate then. We want to be behind our candidate now because we want everyone to be behind our candidate, Ted Cruz, when his day comes. I wasn't a big fan of Romney. I wasn't a big fan of McCain. But I went out and worked hard. And it's important, and I want to underscore why it's important that we work hard in Texas. Let's bring it down to us. Why is it important? We have worked hard. When I said to those, much is given, much is expected, and I said to all of you, the reason I'm here is because of all of you. The reason we have a Republican majority is because all of you. The reason why a Democrat has not won statewide since, I think I said 92 last night, it's actually 1994, which is unbelievable, is because of all of you. We had Battleground Texas come after us. Greg Abbott and myself, and Ken Paxton, and our statewide ticket, and we beat them by 20 points. Because of you. Because you worked. You organized. You knocked on doors. You told your neighbors. You turned out the vote. We worked hard as candidates. We had the good message that resonated, by the way, with Hispanic voters because we received almost 50% of the Hispanic vote, the highest by any Republicans in the history of the country. Thank you, Trammell. And by the way, our message was not subtle. I'm never subtle. We want to secure the border. We want to ban sanctuary cities. We want to end in-state tuition. And 50% of Hispanics supported that message because they want law and order. They want school choice. They want low taxes. They want government out of their lives. But we won because of you all. So what's at stake? After beating them by 20 points in the, quote, battleground Texas when they were coming to take Texas, I don't want Donald Trump to eke out a 4-point win. Okay? I think McCain and Romney won somewhere 9, 10, 11, 12 points. Donald Trump needs to have that kind of victory. Otherwise, in 2 years and 18, the Democrats are going to say, we have new life. We're coming back. If Donald Trump wins Texas by 8, 9, 10, 11 points, we're not going to be seeing any Democrats come knocking on your door for a long, long time. And we have down ballot Republicans we have to reelect. Our sheriffs, our judges, our legislators. We need Will Hurd elected, our congressman. So I know some people came to the convention that weren't on the Trump team, and you still may not be. But folks, we talk about the 17 Republicans who were in Cleveland, at this arena, by the way, at the first or second debate. Let's just add an 18th person, can we, to that debate stage? Yes. And her name's Hillary Clinton. Now tell me that out of those 18 people, that any of you would vote for her. You're going to vote for any of those 17 because any of those 17 on their worst day are better than she could ever be on her best day because she stands for nothing that you believe in. Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, there is no hope. Donald Trump will have a conservative Supreme Court. She will not. He will secure the border. She will not. He will end Obamacare. She will not. He will reduce taxes. She will not. I could go down the list. Forget the personalities. Forget the people. It's the issues. And let me tell you, make no mistake, if we lose this election, and I'm not being over the top, I believe this in my heart, we may never win the White House again because they will make voter fraud a part of the institution of America. Look what they did in Virginia. They released almost 200,000 felons who are going to be able to vote in this election so they can swing Virginia. They will erase our voter ID laws. They will allow people to vote who shouldn't be voting. That's what they will do. They will stack the Supreme Court and overturn everything we do in conservative legislatures across the country. Today, 56% of all state legislators are Republican, 62% of all governors are Republican, 71% of all lieutenant governors are Republican. But it doesn't matter if everything we passed is overturned by the Supreme Court like HB 2 was. It doesn't matter. So it's time to saddle up. It's time to get on board. And I know most of you are there. But you need to go home and tell that story. And if you think this has been a good convention, if you think, look, we play by the rules. Last night, and I forget the gentleman, I don't know if he's here, people always like to know about what's happening. Someone came up with a point of order, and under the rules, I listened, and we got an answer. There was a question about something the Iowa caucus had done. I don't know anything about the Iowa caucus. I don't know their rules. Every state's different. But with Tom and Butch, our parliamentarian, and with a couple of other people, we got the Iowa caucus leader on the phone, their chairman, and answered the question. And is the young man here? Anyway, he did the right thing. He had a question. It's a legitimate question. I said, hey, whatever the rules are, if there's a point of order, we'll call it. And we answered the question. Some people have said to me, Dan, was there actually a petition went around the other day? There was never a petition presented to me from Texas, just for the record, and never a petition. It doesn't mean it wasn't, but I mean no one ever presented one with all the signatures to me, so there was never one. And also, to clarify, no one was ever stopped from speaking. The rules were, unless we had a debate on the floor, even I couldn't be recognized. They wouldn't recognize me. And so just make sure everybody knows all the facts. You know, there were 5, they needed 7 states. There were 5, as you know, 45 states said, we don't want a roll call vote. I'd have been happy with it, but those are the rules. So we played this by the rules, and last night, I thought it was really great that this young man came up, I think his first convention, he said, hey, I have a question. I didn't know the answer. We found the answer, and he said, I'm satisfied, I'm happy. So this has been a good convention. I want you to tweet it, I want you to Facebook it, because we need to send a message back home that we're united. We need to send a message to our neighbors and our friends that we're getting behind Donald Trump. And you need, when you go back home, to explain why it's important. Because we don't want the Democrats to get a foothold back in Texas. Amen. Donald Trump's going to win Texas. The margin is important for the future of Texas. To what our speaker said earlier from Oklahoma. We can never let the Democrats take Texas. Look, we are the shining city on the hill in this country that Ronald Reagan talked about. It's Texas. It really is Texas. We're it, folks. It is down to us. And when it's down to our state to hold the line, it's down to you all to hold the line. You're the leaders. Remember, Luke 12:48, to those who are given much, much is expected. You have been given much by having this opportunity to be a part of history, to save this country, and I'm counting on you. I'll do my best. Thank you. God bless.